And we are back. NFL Week 16 Power Rankings. I'm going to go a bit fast because this is my second time recording it. The first time recording just randomly stopped. So let's get it. 32 Raiders, they're staying the same. There's no doubt why. I mean, they actually did a pretty decent job holding the Falcons to 15 points, but you only scored 9. So, I don't know. It's really that much better. 31, we have the Giants staying the same. They're the same situation. These two teams are interchangeable in my eyes, so Giants got destroyed by the Ravens. I think if you put them head to head, however, I think the Giants would win, so that's why they have the slight edge. However, both those teams suck. 30, Titans. 29, Jaguars. We're going to go over both these at the same time. They had very similar fates. They lost pretty high scoring games, both of them honestly doing really well. Offensively, now defensively, it's a different story. But I do believe both these teams' seasons are, over. Obviously, they're eliminated from the playoffs. They're looking towards the draft. It's just more of, I think the Jaguars are in a better spot because they have a bona fide quarterback. Even if I don't think Trevor Lawrence is the greatest quarterback, I do think he is above average. And I think, the Titans are, if they were smart, going to move on from Will Levis. 28, we got the Patriots. They're going to be going down a spot. They lost to the Cardinals in a game where it was 30-17. However, the Cardinals actually dominated that game. The score's a bit closer than it actually is. I do believe the Patriots are in a really great spot for next year. They're going to have a great, draft, hopefully, with, having what looks to be a top 5, top 7 pick. And I do believe Drake May is looking more impressive than these other rookies. However, he just has a worse supporting cast, hence why they're losing games, but Drake May is putting up stats. So, yeah. 27, we have the Browns. They're going to be going down a spot as well. They actually ended up losing to the Chiefs 21-7 in a game where they could not get anything done on offense. Now, holding the Chiefs to 21 points is a pretty big W. However, you scored 7 points. You decide to go in a different direction, what sounds like for at least this week. I imagine if you're going to do this, it's for the end of the season, starting DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, instead of Jameis. And a move that I don't really like because I feel like if you were to build your team around a quarterback on your roster, it probably would be DTR with, his young upside. But I do think Jameis Winston is the better quarterback. So, unless you are committed to build around DTR or you think DTR gives you the better chance of taking, I don't know what it is. I don't really like the move. I feel like you should have let Jameis finish out the season because you kind of already know your season's over. So why put that in jeopardy with DTR who could ball out? 26, we have the Jets up 2 spots. They actually pulled up a good win over the Jaguars 32-25 in a game where Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers looked like Green Bay. Ultimately, it sucks because they actually look like they are starting to click. And, coming in Week 15 when your season's already over is not a great thing. Now, I do believe come next season, if they do decide to keep that cast together, they could be a dangerous team, but that's also a big if. 25, we got the Bears staying the same. There's not a whole lot to say. They looked defeated that game. You could just tell the morale was not there. They're ready for the season to be over and go to the next one. There's really no bright spot to that game besides nothing. There's nothing. There is nothing. 24, we had the Panthers staying the same. They lost to the Cowboys in the same thing as the Cardinals Patriots where they only lost by 16, but stat-wise they lost by a lot more. The key difference with them is they will more than likely end up with a top pick in the draft, and they are one of the few teams I feel like who would not be in the market for a quarterback. Obviously, I think I would not be upset if they did. It does make sense from their standpoint. Bryce Young has not really done anything in 2 years. Move on from him. However, the amount of progress he has shown from the start of this season to where he is now, I do think it warrants him earning another season as a starter. Whether it be in Carolina or somewhere else. So I do think he will get another chance to start. It's just where will it be? And I do think it would be smartest for the Panthers to keep him around and use that draft pick on, something else in order to try and build that team up. And if it doesn't work out, take a quarterback next year. You have a great, guy to go with instead of having to reach on what I consider one of the weaker quarterback classes we've seen in recent years. 23, we had the 49ers going down a spot. Now, they ended up losing their game 12-6 in a game where, well, they scored two field goals. But they only allowed 4. Now, I think the 49ers season is over. Obviously, they still have that outside chance where if all the teams in their division lose out, they win out, they're in, yada, yada, yada. That's not happening. I do think that, Kyle Shanahan is starting to lose the locker room just a tiny bit. I don't think he's going to lose his job. I think everyone who's saying that, I don't think that will be true. Now, come next season where we see similar results, especially with a healthy team, we could be talking about a different story here. But ultimately, I do think the 49ers just suffered the injury bug that they do like every few years. It always seems to be the 49ers or Ravens. Hopefully, they'll get better next year and go back to dominating. But also, I kind of hate the 49ers, so I hope they finish like 8-9 for the next 5 years and have a horrible draft pick and just barely miss the playoffs. 22, we have the Saints up a spot. Now, they ended up losing their game 20-19 to Commanders in a game where they actually came back, which I really respect. The only downside is they could have tied the game, but instead went for 2. However, even though it failed, I still think that's the right call because going against the Commanders, who are now 9-5, and you guys who are now 5-9, there's really no other call to make. If you see an opportunity to knock off that team, you're going to take it. Now, you're kind of the same situation as the 49ers, where you can still make the playoffs. However, you need to win out. The other teams in your division to lose out. It's probably not going to happen, so we're not even going to consider that a possibility either. 21, we got the Colts down 3 spots. Oh, boy. I thought they were going to win that game. They got out to an early lead. They looked like they were about to score. But Jonathan Taylor dropping the ball short of the line to gain really just changed all the momentum in that game. Now, ultimately, I don't think that's really the key talk about. It's obviously a big factor, but you guys were winning that game. That was a must-win game for you guys. You guys now need to win out and hope one of these other guys out of the Chargers and Broncos lose out. And I don't know how plausible that is. So, yeah. Number 20, we got them boys up a spot. They get a nice win over the the Panthers. Now, I don't think this win means much because, yes, they can still make the playoffs. It is the same exact situation. The only thing this did was keep you alive for another week and hurt your draft position. Granted, in the NFL, I don't really think wins and losses compare to draft position. I think if you have a chance to win every week, you're going to take it, even if, you're 5-8 going into it. I'm sorry. But nonetheless, you got the win. It's just not enough for me to really be praised about you. I also want to quickly apologize. If you hear a cat meowing in the background, she is okay. I am simply babysitting her, and let's just say she does not want to be here. She wants to be somewhere else, and I can't really let her do that. 19, we got the Bengals up a spot. They pick up a nice win over the, whatever their name is, Titans. Same thing about what we were talking about earlier with the Colts, where their guy dropped the ball just short of the end zone and cost them points. Thankfully for them, it did slightly change the momentum. However, they were able to hold on with the big lead they established. And I do think the Bengals could potentially still make the playoffs, albeit a long shot. Out of all the teams who have a long shot to make the playoffs, they show the most potential. Granted, they also need a lot more to go in their favor. Need either the Broncos or Chargers to lose out. Need the Dolphins and Colts to lose one of their final 3. It all could happen. It's just, especially if they win this week, they'd still be alive. Assuming the Broncos and Chargers don't tie, which would be heartbreaking for all 3 of those AFC teams still in the hunt. But yeah. Number 18, we got the Dirty Birds up a spot. See, this is the definition of don't win games or win games. Whatever the saying. I don't know what the saying is. They won their game horribly, but they won. 15-9 against the Raiders. Kirk Cousins benched. Now, he put up a whopping 4 points in my fantasy game. Luckily, I was still able to at least win, although I'm eliminated from the playoffs, so it is, a little 2-game matchup, so it's like a 2-week game. He's gone, safe to say. He's benched. He's off my team. I don't want anything to do with him. But we're not talking about my fantasy team. What we're talking about is the fact they were able to win this game with everything that they did, and that was not a lot. So that keeps them alive in the playoff race. They're still only half a game back at Tampa Bay. They just need Tampa Bay to slip up once, and they're in. And then Michael Penix, we'll see the rookie go. Maybe he can turn this team around. And I do think, that team has a lot more potential for scrambling quarterback than a pocket passer. 17, we got the Dolphins staying the same. There's not a whole lot to talk about with this game. They didn't really do a whole lot. They held the Texans to 20, and this was a game the Dolphins honestly should have won because they threw 4 interceptions and only lost by 8 points. That's really impressive, and unfortunately for you guys, you could not really afford to lose that game, and you did. So, yeah, we're just going to kind of skip over it. You did a good job keeping it close, especially with all the mistakes you made, but you can't be making those mistakes. That's why you lost. 16, we got the Cardinals. They're going to be staying the same. They get a nice win over the Patriots to kind of keep them alive in that, not only the playoff race, but the division. That NFC West kind of a free team battle, and I do think that the Cardinals will have a decent chance, especially with the Seahawks and Rams playing each other later on. And the Cardinals also do, is it the Cardinals or is it the Falcons? I think the Cardinals play the Commanders. It could be the Falcons, though. I'm not quite sure. If they're able to win that game against the Commanders, they're also looking really great for that wild card spot. There's not a whole lot to talk about because, like I said, they only won that game by 13, but they dominated. 15, we got the Seahawks down 4 spots. Now they lose to the Packers, 30-13. The big takeaway from that is Geno Smith suffering that injury to his knee or something. I mean, the Seahawks have a huge game against the Rams coming up soon. I think that could possibly decide the division. So I think Geno Smith will have to be healthy for them to have a great chance. I don't trust Sam Howell enough. Now, as a Packers fan, I'm sorry, Geno. I mean, I love you. You were my starting quarterback in fantasy for a few games. Now you're injured, and I'm not getting rid of you. You deserve to finish this season out. But ultimately, the Seahawks, great season you've had, especially compared to expectations. I'm just excited to see what you build off of. And Geno Smith should be the starting quarterback next year. I keep hearing talks about that. I would be upset if he didn't start. 14, we got the Chargers down 5 spots. Now the Chargers, they actually ended up losing their game pretty bad, 40-something to 17 against the Buccaneers. In a game that they really couldn't lose because now they dropped down to the 7th seed in the AFC. And I do feel like the gap between the 2-seeded Bills at the moment and the 3-seeded Steelers is such a big gap that it's pretty much a guaranteed loss if you're the 7th seed. Where the 6th seed, I could honestly see a lot of scenarios where the upset happens. Now, you lost that game, that puts you down at the 7th seed. However, you play the Broncos on Thursday night, tomorrow as I'm recording this, and it will go out. So you could jump right back into that 6th seed. So, I mean, it's all going to depend, I feel like, for you guys on what happens this Thursday night. 13, we have the Texans that up a spot. They get a nice win over the Dolphins. The only issue is the fact that they only won by 8 with how dominant they were on defense. Really just shows that this offense, when it doesn't have to do a lot, it can still win games. And that's a great thing for the Texans is, not being on their A game and still winning games. And I do believe they could be a scary team come playoff times if they're able to keep up what they've been doing this season where they just outdo their opponents barely, but it's enough. 12, we have the Rams up 3 spots. The Rams are coming. They are looking intense. 12-6 win over the 49ers. Not able to do a whole lot on offense. However, their defense was spectacular. The Rams, I don't want to play the Rams in the playoffs. If I'm any NFC team in the wild card, Vikings, who lost to the Rams, Packers, who barely beat the Rams, and Commanders. I don't remember if they played or anything. I don't want to play the Rams in the playoffs. But at the same time, the NFC is looking so scary right now with them and the Buccaneers and the Eagles and Lions. I think it's going to be a bloodbath in that conference playoff time. Speaking of Commanders, number 11, that's where they will be. They go up a spot. They get a nice win over the Saints by 1 point. They allowed a late comeback. They were able to hold it off. That really puts them in a great spot in the playoffs. It's really a two-team race with them, the Seahawks, and the Rams. Whoever loses that division, I feel like. Maybe the Cardinals can make a move. Maybe the Falcons can make a move. Maybe the Buccaneers, obviously, as well, if they end up losing their division. But Commanders, I mean, they're looking really good. They're same thing to the Texans right now, where they're somehow managing to win games when they really shouldn't be. They have a huge game against the Eagles, where if they lose their division. So I expect them to give it their all. Even if it is, they're probably going to end up losing their division anyway. It's just to stay alive for another week. Entering the top 10, we have the Buccaneers picking up a very impressive win. They're looking like one of the most hot teams in the league. Baker Mayfield slinging that football. Mike Evans determined to get that 1,000-yard season. I do believe the Buccaneers are even scarier than the Rams. And the same thing, I would not want to play this team. I think it is a very tough conference between these top 7 teams we see at the moment. And I do believe that anything could happen. With that being said, the Buccaneers are looking red hot. But they also have the most to lose if they end up, missing losing a game. So they have a lot to worry about. Number 9, we got the Broncos up a spot, picking up a nice solid win. Nothing special, but a win is a win. They only, came back, forced a bunch of turnovers, looked red hot in that, after that first quarter. Nothing special, though. Nothing special. The Broncos pretty much clinched their playoff spot as long as they win one of their final 3 games. They're in. They can win come Thursday against the Chargers. Not only that, that would give them a comfortable lead for that 5 and 6 seed. Hoping the Ravens also drop a game as well. Number 8, we have the Steelers, who are going to be going down 4 spots. They got destroyed by the Eagles. The score says 27-13. When you hear me saying all these other games, the score is a lot, closer than the game was. This one was horrible. The Eagles had like 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter and never gave the Steelers the ball back. That is crazy. They could not do anything. Now, granted, for the Steelers, even with that loss, they punched their ticket in the postseason, so they at least have one playoff game. But they're in a tough spot because they still have Chiefs and Ravens to play, and Bengals, who are also looking really hot. And they might lose their division. They could end up being that 7 seed. So, big issues for them. Speaking of Ravens, number 7, that's where they are up a spot. They pick up a nice win. Something that didn't really surprise me against the Giants, but here we are talking about it. They have a huge game against the Steelers this week, and then next week, it's the, who is it? Or no, they have, let me check quickly. They play the Steelers this week, and then I think they play the Texans next week, so they have a huge 2-game slate coming up. If they were able to win both those games, they would be in a really great spot in order to get, the free seed, so big expectations for them as well. Number 6, we had the Packers, huge win, up a spot over the 49ers. That pretty much all but punches their ticket. As well, they could win, or they need, the Falcons or Rams or someone, or Seahawks to lose a game, and they're in. So they're in a really great spot. With 3 games to go, they still have a decently tough schedule with, the Vikings, obviously, and then the Bears being a division game, you never know. But they have a huge game Monday night against the Saints where if they win, they punch their ticket in. So I expect the green and yellow to do that. 5, we got the Vikings staying the same. Nice win against the Bears. All around dominant. Did their job on offense. Did their job on defense. Never even let the game get close, kind of past that first few drives. The Vikings are a scary team because I don't know how they sometimes play down to the competition with teams like the Jaguars where they only won by 3 points. But they do. But they're winning these games, and that's all that matters. It's the same situation as the Chiefs, where you're not winning your games convincingly, but you're winning your games. That's all that matters. Speaking of Chiefs, at number 4, down a spot, there they are. They pick up a win, 21-7 against the Browns. The only concern with the Chiefs is Patrick Mahomes suffering that injury. Could that affect him for, this game against the Texans, the game against the Steelers on Christmas, their Week 18 matchup? I ultimately think if I'm the Chiefs, I'm going to have him sit out for this Saturday game against the Texans. However, I expect him to play Christmas Day. So that's personally what I see, but I'm also not working for the Chiefs, so who knows. Number 3, we have the Lions down 2 spots. Number 2, we have the Bills up 4 spots. Now, this is something I was not expecting to see. I picked the Bills to win. The Bills win 48-42. The Lions are looking very vulnerable now. They're losing all their guys. Aleem McNeil, David Montgomery, both likely out for the season. They are taking a bunch of cracks in their armor, and it's really going to come down to, 1, if they can fix their armor, or 2, how long this cracked armor can stand. Because they are looking very dangerous, even with these injuries that are happening. So, their GM, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I see the face, I'm sorry. He is looking like a mastermind. Dan Campbell coaching these backups, looking like a mastermind. Bills able to win that game against the Lions, who have won 11 straight, even with that stuff. They're looking like contenders. They look like, if the Chiefs, especially with this Patrick Mahomes injury, keeps slipping up, the Bills could steal that 1 seed. So there's a lot to play for both these teams coming into the final few games. The Lions, if the Vikings win out, they win the 1 seed, and they play each other Week 18. If the Lions win out, which they play the Vikings Week 18, they get the 1 seed. So a lot to play for these Lions of Bills, who are trying to, 1, hold on to that 1 seed they have captured, and trying to make a move for the 1 seed in the Bills. And at number 1, we do have the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Eagles got a nice, impressive win against the Steelers. I think that all but solidifies them as the number 1 team, especially now that the Lions lost the game that I said that the Eagles would need. The Eagles, unfortunately, have an outside chance. Their best path to the playoffs is either the Lions and Vikings. Their best path to the playoffs is essentially hoping both the Vikings and the Lions both lose 1 game this season, which could happen because they play each other, but they would also need the winner of that game to lose a game earlier, whether it be the Vikings losing to the Packers in Week 17 or, the Lions losing another game with all these injuries. But either way, I think the Eagles are very scary. I think it honestly might benefit them to have that extra home game in the playoffs, give them that extra week to kind of prepare and have that playoff experience. I think that could benefit them. Now, that is going to do it for this Power Rankings. I hope you enjoyed. I did. Yet again, I'd like to apologize for being a day late. I hope you can forgive me. I was just really busy yesterday, and I'm not busy at all today, so it just kind of made sense to, instead of trying to force it into my schedule, to just put it into a day where I'm not busy and just kind of spend a decent amount of time recording multiple videos. But that's okay for me. I don't mind. I'll see you guys next time with predictions. Obviously, this should be coming out shortly after, about 2 hours, I'd imagine. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.